Good morning, everyone, or good day, or whatever time you are logging on to see this. Today, we're picking up where we left off, and in the book 11th Hour Preparedness. I'm the author, Tyler Woods, and I'm reading for you the starting in page 67, covering the section on CQ groups. Now, I did not write this chapter. This was written by a friend of mine, and he will be given credit. His name is Brendan Hill, and he wrote this section. I thought it was just amazingly well done, and rather than recreate anything and claim credit, I just reached out to him and asked him and got his permission to include it in its entirety as a chapter in this book, and it's very good. CQ stands for colloquium, and it is, I believe, Latin, and it is the gathering together for the sharing of ideas, and he covers that as well. We began a CQ group. He started one up in Idaho where he was, and it lasted a number of years. We began ours and actually continued further than he did. At one time, ours was the longest lasting and largest CQ group in the nation. We began as sort of like 4-H for adults, and we met once a month in in the community center here in town. And it grew like crazy. We covered every kind of self-sufficient activity: canning, beekeeping, gardening. We had special guest speakers come in each month, and it just flourished. It became a very close group. And in the 5 years that we maintained CQ meetings, we had 10 families that took it to heart and put it to practice. And in 5 years, we had 10 families who relocated to what we call deep rural locations, where they were safely far away from major metropolitan areas. I realize not everybody can do this, but in our group, we had 10 families who did. And those families are still successfully thriving in their new locations and providing as close to self-sufficient lifestyles as they can in their rural communities. Now, they're still part of their community, but their communities are much smaller towns and much further away, and they are very, very valuable assets to their communities, but they are practicing what well, I guess today we would call it extreme social distancing. So let me begin. Page 67, CQ groups. Begin a community group. This is another thing that you can do, what you can do now. It is important to understand that we need community. There are too many tasks and too much opportunity for failure to attempt a solo voyage through life alone. We all need sleep, and that precludes our maintaining constant surveillance. 3 families together would be good, but a community of families would be better. The best would be that every family of a community were prepared and united. However, if that were possible, we wouldn't be facing the situation at hand. Prudence dictates that if the best answer to a failing infrastructure is a large community of like-minded, prepared families with skills and resources fit to assisting each other, then anything we do to promote that community is a good thing. Brendan Hill lives in north central Idaho and originated the concept of colloquium groups, CQ. This begins Brendan's chapter. Colloquium CQ groups by Brendan Hill in north central Idaho. Note, the following section on CQ groups is provided by Brendan Hill and included with permission. Brendan has masterfully articulated how to develop, strengthen into our communities, how to develop strength into our communities through sharing knowledge. Brendan is available for personal preparation assistance. Brendan Hill, Prepared Consulting Systems Incorporated, Brendan at preparedcs.com, www.preparedcs.com. The beginning. CQ to us refers to our local community preparedness group that we started 5 months ago. CQ is actually short for colloquium, which basically means an open discussion about various topics. I chose colloquium to shorten the even longer original name, Community Preparedness Meeting at the Big Cedar Schoolhouse. Whew! What a mouthful. You can see why it was abbreviated. I soon got tired of having to explain what colloquium meant, so CQ it became. I prefer the original and classical word, but will concede to our general ignorance caused by 100 years of government schooling. The following is a concise record of how we formed our group, how it is organized, and what it has accomplished, and how it will continue to grow and mature. We are sharing this information in hope that you will be encouraged to take the same step and be empowered with information to be successful in your endeavors to organize your family, friends, neighborhood, and community. So let us begin. I gave careful consideration to individual prepping. Individual prepping leads quickly to recognition of the fact that you can't do everything yourself and the futility of trying. You need other people to complete the total package of fulfilling daily needs. No one person has the time, money, or expense to be an all-in-one survival community. Who would want to anyway? I like the idea of needing neighbors and sharing skills, assets, and blessings. For instance, my wife is an excellent cook, but I really enjoy potluck dinners. It gives you variety and flavor that you would otherwise never experience, especially desserts. The CQ acorn was planted one sunny day when I was talking with 2 other 4-H dads. The kids were busy with their 4-H projects, so us dads started conversing about the bad state of affairs and the coming economic troubles. I then broadened the subject and asked, wouldn't it be great if we all got together to discuss preparedness and get organized as a community? The response was overwhelmingly positive. One of the men belonged to the LDS church and gave me a thorough review of their church preparedness model and how they have a program dating back 60 years. I was impressed. They have a great program and lots of resources for preparedness-minded individuals. Just one problem. I'm not a member of the LDS church, nor do I see myself joining their church. I realized that I wanted to know more about their program, but I didn't want to open the door for the Amway guy either, if you get my drift. Once I started to inquire of acquaintances that were LDS, I was pleasantly surprised that they actively encourage all community members to prepare, whether they are LDS or not. They do so without proselyting or recruiting. I haven't asked, but I think they have a real common sense approach to preparedness philosophy. Every family outside their church who is prepared is one less community member who may need help when times get rough. They prepare for not just themselves, but to dispense charity also. As for proselytizing, the young men on bikes will get to you eventually for a visit at your doorstep. So let prepping be prepping and mission work be mission work. I obviously can't speak for the LDS Church, but my dealings with them have been honest, straightforward, and mutually respectful. I know they are LDS, and they know I am Christian, Reformed, Evangelical. So be it. We disagree on doctrinal issues, but agree on the coming storm, and we have grown to care for one another. Christ called us to be in the world and have dominion over our culture for Him. How can that happen if we don't have acquaintances outside the church, even friends who are of different faiths and beliefs? Being in the world is not being of the world, two different things. I retain close relationships for those who are of my covenant community. All others are just friends or acquaintances. The point is, don't be afraid to interact with the LDS or others. They won't bite. Anyway, once I found out about their preparedness history and apparatus, I asked how we could access those resources. I was encouraged to speak with people in the LDS Church membership who had specific duties or leadership. In our area, one individual had tried to start a community preparedness group, but it only had buy-in from those who were LDS and no others. The problem was that non-LDS saw it as an LDS thing. I immediately realized the potential of garnering support from the vestiges of this group and build from there. One thing I hate is reinventing the wheel, and this would save us time and energy in getting the word out to potential attendees. Each community has a business or businesses that have their pulse on the community. It may be a coffee shop or cafe where the locals meet and exchange information and discuss politics or the like. I was fortunate to find just the thing here in my small community. I explained to the man who owned the business my plan, and he said it was a great idea and knew for the fact that most of his customers would be interested. He also thought that CQ would succeed because I was organizing it, meaning that would calm the fears of non-LDS folks. And so we would see attendance from everyone. We also had another local asset, a small schoolhouse we could rent for $10. The location was central for all my neighbors, as we are several miles out of town. Choosing a good location is vital. An old schoolhouse, grange, or community center making the location neutral is important, as some folks don't like going to houses of worship not their own. Being considerate of the entire group can pave the way for much consensus and team building. Our location lasted 2 meetings before we moved up the road to my own property. We have lasted 2 meetings here, and now are moving it to a more public location due to growth and scope of CQ. Your location needs to have a few obvious and not so obvious essentials. The obvious are restrooms, water, and power. I have learned the more amenities there are, the more options you have for your topics. Cover from the elements, tables, and even a dry erase board can add significantly to your program. You may notice I didn't mention chairs, as we have had our last 2 CQs outside and everyone brings their own lawn chair. By the time the weather turns, we will be back indoors at a location that has all these things. Sound system is recommended once your group reaches 100 people. Otherwise, it's overkill for smaller groups. Now that we knew we wanted a meeting, and I had consensus of several community leaders, not politicians, we set a date and started formulating a game plan. First rule: focus on excellence, and everything else will follow. Focusing on excellence requires you to see through the small details that can aggravate and disrupt your group's momentum. Momentum, or positive word of mouth reputation, is important to get your neighbors involved. Once they've figured out they are missing something fun, innovative, and worthwhile, they will make an effort to attend. Second rule: keep it simple and short. All our CQs are scheduled for 2 hours every first Friday of the month, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., with social time afterwards so people can talk and network with each other. Our second CQ was so successful, people stayed until 11 p.m. just to talk and network. We chose Friday nights for its ability to allow for later hours, and it doesn't burn a weekend day, which are a commodity in rural areas. We try to have 4 topics discussed in 20-minute segments. If a topic takes longer, the presenter gets another shot the following month or gets a double. For example, our first and second CQ had a presentation on lighting in austere environments. The first CQ, he covered oil or kerosene type lanterns. The next CQ, he presented part 2, which covered pressure fuel, Coleman lanterns. The CQ this Friday, we had a physician's assistant provide us a basic overview of the 3 styles of medical care: grid up, wilderness, and grid down. This took 45 minutes, but set the foundation for future topics on medical issues moving forward. This has been our one exception to the 20-minute rule, so each topic stays fresh and the attendees don't get lecture fatigue, or changing topics every 20 minutes keeps fatigue to a minimum. Third rule, focus on skill building. Discernment of economic disasters and wisdom about our fragile society or thin veneer of civilized behavior is the foundation for a preparedness mindset. The building of skills becomes the obvious outcome of such knowledge. The skills that remove you from the just-in-time supply chain are the skills we look to build in each other and ourselves. The following topics were covered in the last 4 CQs. CQ1, Introduction to the Concept and Quick Demographic Survey. Pruning for production, fruit trees and bushes. Lighting, lamps and candles in austere environments. Beans, bullets, and band-aids, various topics, open discussion. CQ number 2, review of formal emergency management plan for our area. Lighting, lamps and candles continued, fuel lanterns. Discussion of topics for future CQs. Beans, bullets, and band-aids, various topics, open discussion. CQ number 3, review of color code of awareness, plan to design a color code. Emergency action list. Latest CPR techniques and certification sign-up, radio basics and options, water production and storage. Finally, beans, bullets, and band-aids, various topics, open discussion. CQ number 4, update on progress for color code emergency action list. General advanced medical primer, water filtration, purification, and storage, knife and blade sharpening. The topics were picked at random or by request. Again, keep it short and sweet. Those presenting topics should be experts in their field or have extensive knowledge. Otherwise, you can see right through it. Focus on excellence. Fourth rule, no militia or talk of making war. We all know the look you get when you say preparedness, like you've got 3 heads and just admitted you like country dancing with Bigfoot. For the record, Sasquatch don't dance, especially to country music. If you want full community buy-in and support, you have to be able to give guarantees that the warmongers among us are welcome, but will not be given time to speak or recruit for their own self-interest. We do discuss guns, training, and other topics pertaining to paramilitary preparedness, but we declare up front that guns and gun training are for the gun range. There is a separate time and place that is appropriate for such discussions, but CQ is not it. Paramilitary preparedness and training are subjects best discussed quietly among friends you know and trust, not publicly, and especially not amongst a general populace. It will turn off a large percentage of attendees and kill any momentum you might be building. Again, focus on excellence by keeping topics short, concise, and on schedule. Do not give a formal platform to a radical. It will poison your efforts. I will discuss in part 2 how we handle just such an instance. The 5th rule, no politics or religion. CQ sees regular attendance by LDS members, Christians of different denominations, and family that are Messianic Jews. We are even seeing a growing contingency of granola folks. I hope granola is the right word to describe the holistic organic living group without offense. I've slowly been educated by our neighbors who live this culture. I've learned they love to barbecue, non-meat dogs, or turkey burgers. Drink good beer, life is too short to drink bad beer, and some of them even love to shoot. Let's face reality, organic chips and salsa are the best. What I'm trying to get at with the rule number 5 is we need to focus on what we have in common, not what can divide us. Keep the group and discussion focused on skill building. One person described CQ as 4-H on steroids or 4-H for adults, a perfect description. 6th rule, don't have a bunch of rules. Overregulation, organization, and rule-making will turn people away. They want to come and be part of something without having to join something. No call chains, emails, or Yahoo groups. Again, keep it simple for you and them. You'll thank yourself later, and they will thank you by attending and complimenting you on the quality and success of your meetings. An occasional pat on the back and slice of apple pie is all I need to do my part, and it should be simple for you also. If it isn't, it's time to look in the mirror and ask why you want to lead such a group. The first step. The first step in implementation is to find a few like-minded individuals with whom you can share ideas, receive counsel, and help spread the word about the first CQ. As I mentioned previously, I used the wisdom and connections of a local business who saw a lot of like-minded folks come through his door. I also sought counsel from a few others whose temperament and personalities were complementary to my own and conducive to a strong group board. This core group was jokingly called the Council. One day, when my son asked who was coming over to sit by the fire for the evening, I highly recommend anyone looking to start their own CQ have something similar for guidance and input. Let me be very clear. Your council will fail if it doesn't include your better half. I'm talking to you men. Your wives are there to complement and actually complete you. You are incomplete without her. Would you drive a car with only 2 good tires? Point. You won't get very far. They have insight, intuition, and wisdom that we don't. Include them from the start, and it will go well with you. Step 2 is to advertise your first CQ. Advertise quietly by word of mouth only. Hand out flyers to just those friends and neighbors who might be interested. This will ensure a small turnout, but a turnout with quality. Use the first CQ to work out the bugs, have more discussion time, and talk over your goals and plans. Take input and ideas and implement them into the next one. Once you are comfortable and see how it goes, you can go bigger on the advertising by hanging up flyers. Step 3 is to make the CQ more sophisticated by offering more attendees. For instance, we brought cookies and coffee and tea to the first 2 CQs. The third CQ, we started early and added a potluck meal fellowship time, and then we added a campfire social to the end. Those wanting to hang out and talk did so until late in the evening. Ironically, we set up a big tent, borrowed from an attendee, kept it cheap, and the meeting ended up being held with 50 plus people standing around a large fire pit, relaxed, cozy, and warm. It felt like a big family gathering and was quite productive. All the subject content could be building upon previous CQs. Say you start with basic seed sprouting, then small garden to large garden to greenhouse production, simple to complex. Step 4 is to add extracurricular activities as you and the group feel comfortable. For example, the first CQ we did a topic on pruning. I offered a workshop the Saturday morning after the CQ, and several people showed up to watch me prune fruit trees. It was very rewarding for them, and after about 10 minutes, they went from pupils to management telling me which branches to cut and where. Finally, I had to chase them off by asking who wanted a turn. At CQ3, I set a sign-up sheet around for a Utah concealed carry class. We had to have a minimum of 10 people to sign up, and we get the instructor to come to us saving us an hour travel time. We had nearly 20 sign up. We were planning a midsummer barter fair where no Federal Reserve notes money can be used, just barter with goods and services. All services need to be preparedness style goods, breads, leather goods, knife sharpening, honey, and other handmade goods. No yard sale fodder was allowed. Also, we are planning several cider pressing days when the fruit comes in. I have also traded my jam making skills for access to acres of blackberries. We will pick and make jam the same day. I can taste the fruit of our labor already. Yum. These extracurricular ideas can be timed to the season and community need, like group firewood day or cider day. Step 5 is making sure you are ready for anti-CQ mentality. We experienced at CQ2 a newcomer who was quite visibly agitated at the presenter who was reviewing a formal emergency management plan. Everyone in the room knew this was a review of what the professionals use and was not intended for us as a group. The individual left agitated at the break. The next day I spoke with him, and I thought I had clarified the direction of CQ enough for him to be satisfied. Boy, was I wrong. The agitator then changed subjects. He believed the CQ should be run differently, and I have a different focus. To be run differently and have a different focus. He seemed to have some valid points to his argument, so I offered him the chance to present the ideas to the council. The mistake I made was offering empathy towards his ideas by stating some of them have merit. He took that to mean I thought all his ideas had merit and that I just needed a little more information to make the changes he wanted, which wasn't the case. I think the meeting with the council went quite well. This individual did convince us. He convinced us that there is a radical, self-serving segment to the survival community of wannabe badasses who will do and say anything to create a fictitious resume of skills and expertise. Let me be very clear. Do not give radicals a formal platform at your CQ. They will instantly destroy your credibility and your group's momentum, and attendance will suffer. We decided to graciously encourage this individual to go create his own militia or black ops group, as he called it. We let him know that we weren't as prepped as him and needed to focus on skill building or basically 4-H for adults. Well, to say the least, this didn't work. He turned on the full court press, trying to entice me to the dark side. The harder he pushed, the more evident his lack of credibility became. I refused to respond, and his final last gasp was an insulting email that included a personal threat to me. He even resorted to accusations of government conspiracy and infiltration by members of the council into our community. The final red flag for us was his incessant desire to be in control and make CQ into his own personal fantasy of Red Dawn in Idaho. An interesting side note, a clear indication of embellishment of his expertise was the fact that he called himself an expert in preparedness, but lacked basic knowledge of widely known preparedness resources. Step 6 is to embrace programs that already exist and can jumpstart your CQ or give it a definite boost. I don't like to reinvent the wheel, so I looked to the local LDS community for what they already had rolling. We were able to join their local radio network, making it even more community-based and not LD-based. Once a month, they do a radio check on GMRS, radio frequency channel 20. The check is run professionally by the net command. They call out instructions in order of importance. Any emergency traffic is given immediate priority. Then a roll call of captains is taken. These captains are central to their area or neighborhood. The net commander then calls roll for each area neighborhood, and then visitors to the net get to call in. The exercise is vital to where we live due to the mountainous terrain and lack of comms between valleys. Those on points and mountaintops complete the radio check by relaying to command messages and contact information. The last radio check on Sunday evening was impressive as to how far our net could reach and how professional all those taking part in it were. As we grow our CQ from the local to the regional, this radio net will take on a whole new importance. I've also learned that each LDS church has a local purchasing agent that actively pursues great bargains. All we had to do was ask to be put on their email list, and we were in the loop on great purchases of long-term food storage. When the email goes out, you just reply to the instructions on where to pay and pick up the goods when they arrive. We have also found out our country has a part-time emergency management director. Our county has a part-time emergency management director. He has been a good source for print materials pertaining to disaster preparedness, specifically fire and pandemic. We hope to start working with him and the county on a county regional plan through the political power CQ can wield as it grows. Step 7 is to allow and encourage local businesses to participate. These local businesses can provide experts for your topic discussions and great locations to advertise your CQ and get people attending. One of our CQ topics was basic communications and radios. A local communication company attended, and they gave a great lecture on radios and radio wave propagation with our local group in mind. They even brought examples of radios to buy, and we discussed as a group what radio to standardize with for our communications net. Another topic was water production and storage, taught by a local well driller with 30 years experience in well and spring development. At our next CQ, a local health food store will give a lecture on home herbal first aid and medical kit, which will focus on the grid down prevention. These 7 points are meant to help you implement and succeed with your own CQ. Find like-minded individuals as your foundation. 2, advertise quietly and purposefully. 3, make subject content increasingly more sophisticated. 4, add extracurricular activities as you grow. 5, be ready for antagonists. 6, embrace other programs that already exist. And 7, encourage local businesses to participate. All of these points are dependent upon your good listening skills, focus on excellence, and pursuing what can bring you and your community together rather than what can divide it. Our CQ organized along the following: individual preparedness, family or group preparedness, community preparedness, and regional preparedness. I've chosen to follow these 4 points when deciding what topics should be covered at CQ. These topics will generally focus on the first 3 pretty heavy, and on the 4th lightly, as I'm not inclined to create a bureaucracy. Some CQs may actually have all topics focusing on individual preparedness, but that may be necessary due to the time of the year, group dynamics, or some other essential need or requirement. Individual preparedness is focusing on basic skill building. We do try to avoid topics that can encroach upon vacations that can create income. That can encroach upon vocations that can create income during hard times. For instance, we have a group member who is actively perfecting her skill in soap making. We will avoid this topic in specifics, but review in general terms as something someone can do for themselves. As a concession, she has opted to teach everyone how to make laundry soap that is far superior to store-bought and costs under 2 cents a load. The idea is to cover general skills and let the individual decide on specialization for their own economic benefit. Family or group preparedness is the natural byproduct of individual skill building. I consider this level the beans, bullets, and band-aids options. This is where we present topics to help the correct, efficient, and cost-saving acquisition of materials for families and groups. Our next CQ has two such topics: first aid kits and home herbal medicine kits. By covering these, we are focusing on the materials that make up quality kits, but we'll cover at another time the use thereof, which would focus on the individual preparedness level. You could say this level focuses on the nuts and bolts of preparedness gear and supplies. Community preparedness. We are beginning a twofold plan. The first part of the plan is to encourage growth of CQ groups in local communities in our country and adjacent counties. In our county and adjacent counties. We started at the neighborhood level and have slowly accumulated members from neighboring areas and towns. We're now running ads in our local radio market advertising, CQ, for all the towns in the county. The ads are being paid for by one of our business partners who is also presenting a topic. This initiative is basically for folks in our area to come and see for themselves and start networking to start their own CQ. Part 2 of this plan is an extracurricular part to CQ. This plan is designed to mitigate the effects of those in our local area who refuse or can't prepare for hard times. As we all know, there are individuals who will never see the wisdom of preparedness. There are folks who haven't the means, wherewithal, or character to prepare for leaner times. A comprehensive preparedness plan must take into account these people and how to deal with them. An immoral fantasy of large-scale die-off or armed resolution is nonsense and evil. The possibility of large-scale fatalities is real, as well as the prospective use of force in defense of your property. But to long for it or refuse to prepare to mitigate it is weak, lazy, and unethical. Our plan is to create a food acquisition, storage, and distribution plan using the umbrella of an existing entity, but run and managed by CQ members. The basic principle is to set up an apparatus that can submit for grant money, buy long-term storage food, secretly store the food, and then distribute it safely in times of need. Now, please don't think this is a food bank approach. Let me explain further. We have a community organization that is set up as a 501c3 charitable organization. This group has paid the expense and taken the time to become a charity. Their goal is to be an umbrella for the surrounding community organizations, which allows them to apply for grant money using their IRS money. We are using this process for our local gun club to save time. The gun club registered with the state for $30, and now we can pursue grant money using the umbrella group. This food plan would pursue grant funds, allowing us to buy a 1-year supply of long-term storage food for 500 people. Once food is purchased, a secure location would be obtained for storage and an agreement with local churches to utilize their existing kitchens for distribution. Think of it as a level between individuals and the Red Cross. This would begin with one location, then branch out to other communities, effectively covering all suburban small towns in our county. We have received encouragement to proceed from the sheriff's office and the county emergency management director. They see it for what it is, an extra layer or buffer between chaos and order. The county likes the fact it's a private endeavor that requires no funding or oversight from them. It will or may require some security provisions when utilized, but at that point, security will involve the whole community under the sheriff's leadership anyway. This plan takes a little more time and effort, but the rewards of having secure private foods cached for public distribution can relieve negative and immediate food concerns when troubled times hit. Regional preparedness is really just encouraging the first three in communities next to yours. We envision our CQ maturing in content and skills While this occurs, neighboring communities start CQs and can do the same. We have two in the startup phase right now. Once they mature, they look to their borders to do the same. Think of it as a growing sphere of influence and protection. The greater the influence outward and away increases defense and potentially mitigates problems translocating to your area. We naturally, or by other examples, want some sort of leadership or formal organization. We can have the benefit of this without the headache or time consuming investment. Let me explain. Amateur radio networks are the perfect apparatus to loosely organize the entire network in your area and eventually regionally and nationally. If our network here in central Idaho matures and begins to grow outward, we can add captains to each new area and eventually a group of ham captains to relay regionally and nationally. Again, I don't like to reinvent the wheel, so I will look to establish routes to achieve my goal. The last weekend of June is a National Radio Field Day for hams. They will spend 24 hours trying to reach as many contacts as possible. We will encourage those ham folks in our CQ to establish radio contacts outside our region, such as Spokane, Boise, Missoula, and farther away. Likewise, new CQ groups with their local net will bump into each other as the CQ sphere of influence grows or as radio networks start overlapping. This model for expansion or connection reminds me of Subway sandwich shops and how they franchised in the early 1990s. You could find Subways almost built on top of each other, the way they expanded and allowed franchises to open. Let's hope CQ is so successful that it has the same problem. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes from the Holy Bible. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Proverbs 27:12. Gloria Deo, Brendan Hill in North Central Idaho. Our CQ group, this is now my quote, back to my writing. Our CQ group in South Texas is in its third year and has spawned another fast-growing group about 20 miles away. Other groups are forming as a result of conferences held in other sites. If you would like to assist in forming a CQ group, contact us at contact@the11hour.com, and we can connect you with CQ leaders who can offer encouragement and suggestions. Our CQ group continued for 5 years, and during that time, we saw incredible growth. We saw an amazing fostering of ideas that has continued and grown very, very widely beyond any of our hopes. I'll leave you with this quote. There are too many tasks and too much opportunity for failure to attempt a solo voyage through life alone. God made us to be people of community, not isolated on a mountaintop all alone. God made us to be careful for one another and to care for each other's needs. We'll leave you with that. This has been a long chapter, but we'll continue tomorrow with the next section, which is a little shorter. God bless you all.